Before starting this video, it's very important for me to preface this. Melanie Martinez has some serious sexual assault allegations on her, and if you're about to say that they've been disproven, no, they were not. Check out the video I've linked in the description. It's very informative, and the creator themselves inspired me to make this. I do believe, however, in separating art from the artist, so my critiques and analysis will be limited to that. Also, massive trigger warning for sexual assault, parental abuse, grooming, and eating disorders, specifically bulimia. If these topics make you uncomfortable, you can come back whenever. Take care of yourself and don't put yourself through the stress. With that said, who is Melanie Martinez? Melanie Martinez is a singer and songwriter born in 1995, gaining popularity from her appearance in 2012's edition of The Voice. Since then, she has made 3 albums: Crybaby, K-12, and Portals. We'll not be discussing Portals as the main character in her narration, Crybaby, is not present. Now, I was a big fan of Melanie for a big chunk of my childhood and early teens. I liked how she embraced sensitivity, being a kid, and was always drawn to her aesthetic, not counting the fact that she does have undeniable talent as a singer. But with me not being a native English speaker, I never really understood much of her lyrics back then. I knew what the songs were about, and I thought they were deep and dark and spoke to my soul, but again, I was a kid who stayed locked up in a room all day reading fanfiction on AO3, and kids don't have great critical thinking. So, we're starting off strong with Crybaby, the album and the character, which to me has the most problems, lyrics and story-wise. To avoid going madder than the Mad Hatter, the character will be referred to as CB throughout the video, while the album will keep its full name. So, in Crybaby, CB is an extremely sensitive and vulnerable girl, hence the name, with a rather unfortunate living situation. Her dad's a cheater, her mother's an alcoholic, they both appear to be very neglectful, and her brother stones himself to death, figuratively, to cope with all of it. She herself has a lot of issues with body image, bullying, and she even gets kidnapped and sexually assaulted by a big bad wolf, which she ends up killing. And all of this ends up with her struggling with severe mental health issues in the song named Mad Hatter. Now, there are some tracks which I still very much appreciate, such as Pity Party, Alphabet Boy, Crybaby, and I have no idea if they count as part of the album but Playdate or Cake, and that's because they're inherently harmless, and some of the lyrics I find to be relatable, and sometimes even nuanced and interesting. Covering topics ranging from insecure men feeling threatened by smart women, being in shallow relationships, and CB feeling isolated from her peers because of her string sensitivity, which was what drew me to her music in the first place, and these tracks specifically, I think were handled better. Then we have the last bad ones, like Pacify Her or Mrs. Potato Head, the first one being about CB changing forever after being essayed.
She is basically a homewrecker and steals a boy away from just a random girl just because she feels like she has lost all hope in love and just is trying to f with people and hurt people's feelings.
This is a terrible way to deconstruct hypersexuality and trauma responses in general, just terrible. This might have been interesting, it might have been, I don't know, something about CB learning about infidelity through her father and accepting it as normal, for example. But instead, they had to link it to the most traumatic experience known to man, and of course, put that Melanie touch on it. Oh, did I say touch? If I hadn't mentioned it already, Melanie Martinez doesn't exactly do touches. They do hand fists. Also, I choose to attribute the song to the need of sexualizing oneself after a traumatic experience, which might not be the case, simply because otherwise the way the story is narrated is unnecessarily adult, but we'll get to that. Mrs. Potato Head is pretty bad too. Apparently it's Mel's favorite song on the album, and it's about plastic surgery. It's some vague body positive stuff about not changing yourself just to be attractive, and how the media pushes certain beauty standards that change over time, and yes, it's true, just like a lot of other things she talks about, but for it to be a good song, it needs to be told right. The topic being present doesn't mean it's being handled in the right way. There's a similar song in K-12, Orange Juice, which is about bulimia, and while Mrs. Potato Head is a bit better in the sense that it doesn't just graphically describe the process of a surgery like Orange Juice does with purging, and also, plastic surgery in itself is really different from a life-ruining eating disorder, but we'll talk more about Orange Juice later since it's my least favorite Melanie Martinez song. The moral is pretty much the same. Don't put yourself through the stress to be beautiful, and so on. Which is a very ignorant statement in OJ specifically, but in Mrs. Potato Head, it's not great either. We live in an appearance-based world where not all of us are born conventionally attractive, and while beauty standards may change, there is an objective view of what is beautiful, and Melanie, a conventionally attractive person with a healthy body, cannot be here telling women and men who don't feel comfortable in their own skin to not change themselves just to be beautiful. Also, plastic surgeries aren't inherently bad, like she's trying to imply in her lyrics, but again, everything is just black and white. Sorry, everything is just pastel pink and baby blue. And then we have the really, really bad ones. Starting off with Dollhouse, the second song on the album, it serves as an introduction to CB's family and as an establishment of the childlike theme of early music. This time through a metaphorical dollhouse in which they're all forced to play their part to keep up appearances. This could have been great. I'm not gonna lie, she does have good concepts and ideas, but the execution of said concepts, it's god-awful. I'm going to analyze everything from this point on, both from a storytelling perspective and from a mere lyrical point of view, as we can't forget that this is a concept album, nor a movie or show. So, I want you to picture this. CB is a child. She might experience adult things, but she's a child. Children have their own way to process situations and emotions. Melanie could have played with that, and she does so very well in Pity Party, for example. But the fact of the matter is, she came from a stable and loving household. She never experienced anything of what's going on here and is looking at CB's life through the lens of an adult. Would I get at this perspective? And it's not just for Dollhouse, it's the same for Sippy Cup, Pacify Her, Milk and Cookies, and all throughout K-12, where even though CB is a teenager and it makes sense for her to be more mature and have a better idea of what's going on around her, Melanie's lyricism makes her sound like a Darman character. But we have plenty of time to discuss it later. Again, many people argue that she's spreading awareness, but that doesn't mean I can't criticize it for it being shitty. 13 Reasons Why spreads awareness, it's all in the execution. Her insight on basically every societal issue in the world is shallow and surface level. Does she talk about the problem? Yeah, sure, but did she add anything to it besides some cute images and bunny surgeons, old-world pedophiles? Fuck no! The commentary is just that it exists. Abuse is bad. No shit! Actually, that would be giving it too much credit because she doesn't even discuss how CB feels through a dollhouse, or Sippy Cup for that matter. In the song, CB's mother kills her husband, and it's partly from her own perspective, which I think is okay, and I do like some of the lyrics. However, not only are we back to the shaming of those who choose to get plastic surgery,
you call that as your own, we call that silicone,
and or struggle with the body image.
All the makeup in the world won't make you less insecure.
And if you're trying to argue that it's meant to make the character more tragic, CB's mother is clearly meant to be a negative figure, and since the explanation of what's happening is so thick I can cut it with a knife, and there's no subtlety, I can't really bring myself to think that there was a more sympathetic insight into this than just shallow woman only cares about her appearance and drinking ethanol from her sippy cup. But also, again, there is no takeaway here. We don't feel for anyone in this song, it's just misery porn. It's impossible for me, personally, to care. Storytelling through music is not easy, especially when tackling subjects like abuse, but I have the perfect example of how it can work, through the Man and Goats album, The Sunset Tree. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or didn't watch my analysis of Moral Oral where I discuss it extensively, The Sunset Tree is about the experience of John Darnielle, the lead singer of the band, of growing up with an extremely abusive stepfather. Not only did Darnielle himself experience a lot of what he talks about, making his music feel authentic and real, but he actually has you somehow relate to a lot of what he writes in one way or another, even if you haven't been through the exact same thing as him. The perfect example of this is this track, which I cannot bring myself to pronounce for the life of me. I am so sorry, it's such a tongue twister for me, but part of the lyrics read, "I'm in my room with the headphones on, deep in the dream chamber, and then I'm awake and I'm guarding my face, hoping you don't break my stereo, because it's the one thing that I couldn't live without, and so I think about that, and then I sort of black out, held under these smothering waves by your strong and thick-veined hand, but one of these days, I'm gonna wriggle upon dry land." This is what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter that the two genres of music I'm comparing are drastically different because this is what Melanie wants to talk about. She wants to talk about the real shit, broken homes, abuse, mental illness, and this is just soul-crushing lyricism and a perfect example of how you can portray such heavy topics in a song without making it feel unauthentic and shallow. it's heartfelt and it's brutal, and its lyrics, while the Mountain Goats aren't mainstream artists, have helped a lot of people go through such traumatic events. This is what Melanie misses in her music, in my opinion. And that's because while she herself may be a sensitive person just like her character, she never put herself in CB's shoes and never tried to make us do the same. And this also goes for the songs regarding sexual assault, Tag Your It, and Milk and Cookies. Now, I'm not gonna discuss these two in the fear of repeating myself, but this is just to say that if you relate in any way to these two songs or Melanie's music in general, this video was not made to bash you in any way, and I'm so happy if you found comfort in them, because I can understand that. Essay representation is tricky in the sense that everyone experiences it differently, and what may bring solace to some may be offensive to others, and I think that's completely fine. However, music is a form of art, and it is to be analyzed and criticized if necessary, which is what I'm doing here. If you disagree with anything of what I'm saying here, feel free to leave a comment down below. I would be very happy to see your point of view. With that said, I'm kinda done with Crybaby as a whole. I'm not gonna discuss Mad Hatter because the same logic goes for every one of the songs that I haven't mentioned yet. I just don't find the commentary to be interesting or insightful in any way. So with that said, let's get to K-12. K-12, both as an album and as a movie, has also a very interesting concept. As the title suggests, it's a look at society through the lens of a school setting. Cool. This has been done spectacularly in Heathers, both the film and the musical, for example. I personally love it as an idea, and I think it can be relatable to a lot of our listeners, who are mostly teenagers who feel isolated from said society in some way. But once again, is it actually good? The answer is a resounding meh. There are some songs that I love up to this day, like Recess and Nurse's Office, and that's because they felt personal to me, and sometimes I still listen to them out of nostalgia. Some are really mediocre but overall harmless, like Detention, High School Sweethearts, Wheels on the Bus, Classified, and Lunchbox Friends. Yes, they're a lot, and they're not bad, but the melodies themselves are stale, and I never really liked them, even when I was a big fan of hers. Then there are the social commentary ones, which are pretty bad. In the movie, the dialogue, especially surrounding the songs, is Riverdale levels of terrible.
Right, so about that, is it possible to get assigned a different role? Maybe one that's not so domestic, like a film director or the president of the United States?
Harlot, perhaps?
President? What a joke. Your kind are too soft and too sensitive to handle a man's job.
Having a larger capacity to feel and express emotion are one of the many qualities that make us superior to your kind.
Oh, that's right! Thank you, CB, for showing me the way. I would have never gotten the point with this peanut brain of mine. I am so glad you're here. These songs are just really harmless, yet still very shallow commentary on online identity portrayed in Drama Club, right-wing politicians, specifically Donald Trump, as sin in the principle, and let me just say, I live in a country where our Prime Minister, when asked her opinion on Mussolini, just said he was a historic figure, and our Vice President of the Council posts pictures of his risotto giallo between horrible news of immigrants dying overseas. So I certainly get what she's saying, but it just feels like different quotes from a Tumblr post pasted together in a 3-minute song. Again, though, they're not the worst ones, as she's not really spreading dangerous messages or undermining any of the subject matter, so yay? Up next, we have Teacher's Pet, which is a song about grooming and teacher-student relationships, and I will be really quick with this one because I liked it back then, and I strangely still have some positive insight on it. First of all, since Melanie is really strong on visuals, I will also be addressing them, and I really appreciate how the abuser in this situation is portrayed by a conventionally attractive man who perfectly fits into society. I talked about it in my video on Valentino from Has-Been Hotel, but I feel overall that we, as humans, often paint predators to look like the big bad wolf from Tag Your It, for example, waiting in the rusty white van to give you candy, and it plays into the linking unattractive features to awful actions, which we really shouldn't do. So that's great. I also like how the song is arranged. It's menacing and uncomfortable, and it's meant to be that way, so yeah, my opinions haven't changed that much. And then, no, why did Melanie make this song? Orange Juice. Oh god, this is the worst song on the album. Hell, it's a worst song ever, aside from Million Men in my opinion, which I do not believe I'm qualified to speak on. But I mentioned before, it's a song about bulimia. Eating disorders are an extremely nuanced issue, and no, Melanie, the ones that last don't stem from wanting to look good in low-waisted jeans. They're often tied to neurodiversity-related conditions like autism and OCD, other mental illnesses, horrible living situations, and they're an addiction, especially bulimia. Turning oranges to orange juice is a terrible analogy that undermines how gruesome the process of purging is. Telling a person with an ED like bulimia that their body is imperfectly perfect is stupid and unhelpful. Describing the process of purging like this is also unnecessary and ungracious. Of course, I even have to mention that the girl who is struggling in the song immediately recovers after Melanie comforts her with her shit-alone monologue about her bodies are impermanent. It's oversimplified, the acting is terrible by the way, in the worst way possible, and it's misinformation on eating disorders at its finest. This song is just fucking disgusting, and I am so sorry for anyone who felt personally offended by it, as well as those who instead felt comforted by it, because you know what? You deserve better, and you deserve your struggles to be represented with much more care and depth. And I'm saying this not even counting that in the music video it's implied that Kelly, the mean girl in CB's story, is the cause for the girl's bulimia. Is there a metaphor I'm missing here? Because this is also really, really stupid. Hi, this is editing Bittersweet Tooth, and I just realized that I sounded really, really harsh, and I'm sorry, but I feel like this song has flown under the radar for too long. If you're struggling with an eating disorder, there are resources that can help you in the description, and if you're not ready to heal yet, that is also completely fine. Just know that no matter how you feel, if you think you're not sick enough or that you had no support system, you are valid in your struggles and you deserve to live a healthy, full life. Eating disorders are never talked about enough, and when they are, it's always like this. I'm so sorry, and I truly hope you can, when you're ready, take the hard step towards recovery. With that said, these two albums are shameful. They're shameful in the sense that it's clear that Melanie can write good music and lyrics, but tried so hard to be edgy and dark that she forgot she was writing a story from a little girl's point of view. The loss of innocence part of her narration got lost in the way in favor of on-the-nose commentary on subjects she never dealt with. Now, I'm not saying she has to go through them to talk about them, but she just doesn't know how to. Her best songs are the ones that are personal to her. I haven't talked about the After School EP, but it's the extended play that came before Pearls, which is solely about Melanie's experience, and coincidentally, it has the best lyrics. Glued had been my absolute favorite song for a while, and I still stand by it when I say it's a great track. Even the songs that are closer to them in their previous albums, I think, are great, and I just kinda wish they stuck to the theme because it's actually much more interesting, and again, it feels human. I know I've been really harsh and critical in this video, and I will die on this hill, but I can't really bring myself to bite the hand that fed me. I understand those who relate to CB's character and concept albums, because, to some extent, I did too, and I can fully give Melanie credit for it. I have always been very vulnerable and very influenced by my emotions. I have experienced some of what she talks about, and I'm not gonna lie, her music and embracing femininity and childhood kinda helped me through my internalized misogyny, not like other girls' phase I was going through when I discovered her. However, I find that the way in which she spreads awareness has some very serious issues, and since that's most of her storytelling, which still gets praised as brave and hard-hitting, I feel like I had to talk about it. This kind of deviates from my usual style of content, and it's my first time analyzing music and doing a bit of commentary myself, so criticism will be fully appreciated. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more video essays. Sometimes long, sometimes short, sometimes good, and sometimes bad, and I will hopefully see you next time. This has been Bittersweet Tooth, and a criticism of Crybaby and K-12. Arrivederci.